Have you ever really stopped to think about how different the world was before we could just hop in a car and go? Well, today we're going to dive into the incredible story of how the automobile went from being a toy for the super rich to a tool that completely reshaped the world for all of us.
So let's just set the scene. A little over a century ago, your entire world was basically limited by how fast a horse could walk. Seriously, a trip to the next town over, maybe 50 kilometers away, that was a huge journey. Most people were born, lived, and died in the exact same spot. And then the car shows up. Suddenly, you have the freedom to go anywhere, anytime. The very idea of distance just changed forever.
But, this didn't happen overnight. Not even close. To really get what a revolution this was, we got to go back to the very first cars, right at the turn of the 20th century. And let me tell you, they were anything but a practical dream.
These first cars were, well, they were a total menace. People saw them as a public nuisance. They were incredibly loud, they smelled awful, and they were always breaking down. You'd have horses bolting in the streets, they kicked up these huge clouds of dust, and they were so complicated and expensive, you basically needed your own personal mechanic on standby. This wasn't transportation, it was an adventure hobby for millionaires.
But then, this engineer out of Detroit, a guy named Henry Ford, he saw something totally different. He wasn't interested in building another plaything for the wealthy. He had this huge idea, a car for everybody, a car for the great multitude.
So in 1908, he gives the world his answer, the Model T. Now, it wasn't the fanciest car, and it definitely wasn't the fastest, but it was tough. It was simple enough that a farmer could fix it with his own tools, and it was rugged enough to handle the awful, muddy roads you found all over the country back then. It was the perfect car, except for one really big problem.
It still cost $825. Now that might not sound like a lot, but back then, that was more than a year's wages for the average worker. It was just out of reach. And this is where Ford had his true moment of genius. He realized the problem wasn't the car. The problem was how the car was made.
And this, right here, this is the part of the story that changes everything. Because Ford's real revolution wasn't the car itself. It was the factory. He was about to completely reinvent the way things are built. And by doing that, he changed the modern world.
You see, before Ford, cars were basically built like a custom piece of furniture. You'd have a team of highly skilled guys who would stand in one spot and build one car at a time, from the ground up. It was slow, it was painstaking, and it was incredibly expensive. You could never build for the masses that way.
Then, in 1913, he gets this wild idea, actually inspired by the way slaughterhouses worked. He introduces the moving assembly line. Instead of the workers moving around the car, just a bare chassis really, is pulled along the factory floor, moving to the workers. And each worker, they do one simple task, over and over and over again. And the result? Just look at this. It was mind-blowing. The time it took to build one car dropped from over 12 hours, all the way down to just 90 minutes. That's not just an improvement, that is a complete game changer. It's a different reality.
And this massive, almost unbelievable jump in efficiency, it wasn't just about making cars faster. No way. It gave Ford the power to completely rewrite the rules of the economy for everyone.
So first thing he does, he passes those savings right on to the customer. The price of the Model T just kept dropping and dropping, eventually getting below $300. Now that was a price the average family could actually afford. His dream was finally happening.
But here's the absolute masterstroke. In 1914, he introduces the $5 day. He more than doubled the average wage in his factories overnight. And this wasn't charity, it was brilliant business. Ford made sure that his own workers could afford to buy the very cars they were building. He created his own customers.
This famous quote just sums up the whole philosophy perfectly. Why only black? Because black paint dried the fastest, which meant the assembly line could move faster. By standardizing absolutely everything, he made it efficient. And by making it efficient, he made it affordable for millions.
Okay, so the car is now affordable. What happens next? Well, this is where the ripples of that one innovation start to spread out and completely rebuild society from the ground up. It changed everything.
All of a sudden, you didn't have to live right next to the factory anymore. People could move out of the crowded cities, and boom, the suburbs are born. A whole new economy just springs up around the car. Gas stations, motels, repair shops, tire companies, you name it. And later, the government builds the huge interstate highway system, connecting the country like never before. It just gave people, especially in rural America, a sense of freedom they had never, ever known. The car literally made the country feel smaller.
Of course, a change this massive is never that simple. This incredible revolution, it absolutely came with a cost, and it's a legacy we are still grappling with today.
And here's the trade-off, right? Ford gave the gift of mobility and personal freedom to everyone, and that spurred incredible economic growth. But that gift came with a heavy price: our total dependence on oil, air pollution, traffic jams that drive us crazy, and, tragically, countless accidents. It's a legacy of amazing progress, but also of really serious problems.
So, in the end, Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile, but he's the one who took it from the rich and gave it to the rest of us, building the world we now live in. Today, we're standing at the edge of the next great car revolution with electric and self-driving vehicles. And it forces us to ask that same question all over again. What new freedoms will this next revolution give us, and what will be its cost?